So, Dan, I know today is a very special day and everybody's talking about it. Taxes are due today, but I think you were sharing some news with me that could be good for some people and maybe not so good. Do you want to talk a little bit what's happening in the tax space?
Well, dreaded tax day, filing day, has arrived. I mean, for most taxpayers, the tax day is still April 15th for your personal income tax return, and that got extended. And then it was extended until October 15th, and then the news was over the weekend that the IRS has just extended the deadline to file for another month. So now I can't verify that that's true. I just heard it. I just heard it moments ago from a trusted friend, but I haven't checked the news. So you might want to verify that. If you don't have your tax return in, you may have some more time. But we were talking about, if you have a living trust, you have to file a separate tax return for your trust or not. And some people get confused about that. Because in the old days, if you had a trust, your trust had a tax identification number and it had to file a separate income tax return. So you filed a tax return and then the trust filed a return. But fortunately today, most living trusts use the Social Security number of the creator of the trust. And so when you file your own return, that's automatically the return for your living trust. So there's only one return. The IRS doesn't want to get two returns, one for you, one for the trust, because that's twice as many returns for them to have to go through. So if you have a living trust, it does not have to file a separate income tax return, provided that you're using your own Social Security number as the trust tax ID number. Yeah.
So Dan, maybe in a separate event, let's say somebody had passed away earlier this year, and they did not have a living trust, or there was some type of probate type event where it has to go to the public courts and things like that. In that case, is that when the EIN comes in and there's some other taxable events in those matters?
Yeah, so tax returns for estates and irrevocable trusts, that's a different matter. And you're right. I mean, when the first thing that happens when somebody passes away, let's say they pass away in February or June, but part of the way through the year, so their tax return won't be due until April 15th the following year, and then it really depends on how much income they had. But for the rest of that tax year, if they're still getting income from businesses or trusts or interest or dividends, then the estate should get an EIN number or a tax identification number. And then there will basically be two tax returns the following year, one for the decedent's personal return, the portion of the year that they were living, and the other for the estate of the decedent that'll be due between the date of death and December 31st. So there could be two tax returns.
And would that also be true if you had a trust? Let's say somebody passed away, last year, 2022, and both, let's say it was living trust, it was a couple, and one person already passed away, unfortunately, and now the other person that was part of the living trust or the trust. What happens in that case with the taxes as well?
Well, so when somebody that has a living trust, single or married couple, when they die, the revocable trust becomes irrevocable, and then the trust has to get a tax identification number and file income tax returns until the estate is distributed and closed, or until the trust is distributed and closed.
And are there any tax things that happen? You get a lot of questions regarding this when it's tax time or tax season. Is there some common things that people will come to you about or ask questions, or maybe like the top three in your mind that
Well, I mean, I think the ones we're covering are it. Does my living trust have to file a separate tax return? No. And I think the questions we covered have been really kind of the top issues.
Awesome.
Yeah, just don't ignore your tax returns. Get them filed, or there are interest and penalties to pay.